Have you ever wondered what people are really thinking? You know, not the smiley, happy face they present when you ask them, "How are you doing?" but the inside, real, down-to-earth person that perhaps they want to hide. My name is Ian Currey, and this is Thinking Out Loud. Come on, let me tell you what I think. First of all, an apology. I know some of you look forward to seeing these videos each week, and I appreciate the number of emails and messages asking, "Are you all right?" I am, don't worry. I've just had a lot to do lately, and sometimes setting priorities pushes video making, letting you know what I'm thinking, down the list of things to do. Sometimes the most important things to do are not the most urgent. Have you noticed? The urgent thing to do would have been to get a video made in time for the Friday deadline. The important things to do were to make sure I'd had enough sleep, sorted out my work schedule, and spent time charging my mental batteries. Have you noticed how resilient people can be in a crisis? They can look so relaxed with a big smile and yet be deeply hurting inside. Social media helps us stay connected in some ways, but it can often help that plastic front that gives the whole wrong idea about how we're really feeling inside, can't it? Looking at everyone doing just fine with their wonderful lives, going along at just the right pace, the way they should, can be very depressing when things aren't going so well for us. But it's a brave person who posts, "Help, the wheels just fell off my life. I made a big mistake. My plans ground to a halt and I need help." One of the reasons for the gap in these weekly videos has been that I've had some flying to catch up with. Now, sometimes with back-to-back trips, you meet passengers twice, flying back from a trip they're making, and you saw them on the way over or something. And once in a while, you'll remember something about them. This past week, I flew back and forth to Ireland a couple of times, spending more time in the air than at home. And yes, the rain came down. And yes, I found some time to look at trains. But I also had some work to do. On the first leg to Dublin, I chatted with people on the plane and got to know a few of the passengers a little. Can you imagine me getting paid to talk to people? Shh, don't tell my boss I'd probably do that for free. One couple were going on a trip of a lifetime and looking forward to their visit to Ireland. We chatted about some of the places they thought were going to be highlights, and I suggested others I'd enjoyed during the time we'd lived in Ireland. Imagine a day or two later when I'm walking through the airport and I hear my name being called. "Ian, Ian, hello." And there were my new friends waving and smiling. I waved back, greeting them with an equally big smile. I briefly wondered what they were doing in the airport instead of on their tour, but I was too busy to think about it for very long. They seemed to be enjoying themselves. Perhaps they were meeting friends or something. I got on with my work and soon found myself at the boarding door of the huge aircraft, greeting passengers and showing a few children around the flight deck. I loved doing that. The wide eyes of the small children are always incredible as they step into what must seem like an amazing place. It's one of the highlights of my job. Soon, to my surprise, along came the couple who'd been waving at me in the airport terminal. "Hello," I said. "You missed me that much that you've come to see us so soon?" They smiled and chuckled, and I could see something wasn't quite right. Now, once everybody had settled down and we were on our way, I took a wee walk from the front of the plane where I was supposed to be working to find the couple. "How was your trip?" I asked, pretending not to remember they were supposed to be in Ireland for much longer. The couple started to tell me a bit about the day they'd had walking the streets of Dublin in the rain, and telling me about the lovely meal they'd had at the restaurant I'd recommended. But I wasn't giving up that easily. I must have raised a quizzical eyebrow or something, because the smiles finally displaced and the real couple were there in front of me. I wasn't meaning to pry, but clearly they wanted to talk to someone. Actually, we've had to cut our trip short. It's a trip of a lifetime, but our son died yesterday and we've had to return home. Thank you for being there for us, and we just needed a familiar face, and there you were. Oof. I'm not sure about being a familiar face or being there for anyone, but the reality was far darker than the big smile I'd received both in the airport and on the aircraft. Do you see how it works? We all want to pretend a lovely polished smile and is what's really going on, and present that, and present cheery waves without going into our background. On that flight too were several other passengers I recognised. I suppose some of them had travelled for a long weekend or a week or something, and I just happened to be on both ends of their journey. I even remembered one or two names, which for me was quite amazing. But can you see? People have a lot going on in the background and still somehow want to put a facade up that gives the impression that everything is just fine. I dare say if you look at social media, from most of the people on the plane that day, you'd find it hard to see the cracks and crevices going on in the background. And instead, you'd see lovely pictures of Ireland. This week, although I didn't find time to make a video for you, sorry, I did find time to look after a couple who were grieving, and also managed to read a little of what Amos wrote all those hundreds of years ago. Now, Amos seems to me to be a bit of an Eeyore. He's known as the first Hebrew prophet to have a book named after him, but not a jolly smiler at all. More of a prophet of doom and gloom, really. I mean, he starts off one chapter by saying, "Listen, all you people of Israel, listen to this funeral song I'm singing." I mean, who does that? It doesn't matter how you say it. Hey, you want to hear a funeral song? No? Well, why not? Later in the same chapter, Amos has a go at people wishing to meet their maker rather than face reality. You have no idea what you're wishing for. That day will bring darkness, not light. In that day you'll be like a man who runs from a lion only to meet a bear. Escaping from the bear, he leans his head against a wall in his house and he's bitten by a snake. He sounds like a jolly character, doesn't he? Made me wonder though, how did that man escape a lion and a bear? What do you do if you meet a bear? It's not all that likely around here, but still, I asked a friend who would know that sort of thing, and he said, well, don't play dead. If you do that, it's just practice for what will be your reality a few minutes later. Pretending to be happy when you're not. Pretending all is well when it isn't. And pretending life is just great when it's anything but. There's a theme running about pretending there, isn't there? Amos goes on to talk about people who are pretending everything is just fine and they're off to church with a big smile. I hate all your show and pretense, the hypocrisy of your religious festivals and solemn assemblies. Away with your noisy hymns of praise. I will not listen to the music of your harps. In the context of this Amos rant, he's presenting the case for not pretending everything is fine and only actually turning to help from God when everything else fails, a last resort rather than the first place to go. I know we sometimes don't want others to see how much of a struggle life actually is. But do you see how fighting those hard battles on our own, with a plastic profile on our social media pages, isn't helpful to us or our friends? Being real, and yes, perhaps a little vulnerable from time to time, might not just help you, but the rest of us who are struggling too. Until next time, goodbye.